and I work as a senior cloud architect with the Amazon Web Services professional team based out of Singapore. In this session, I shall provide an overview of how organizations are performing large-scale migrations to the AWS cloud, and also talk about how organizations are leveraging AWS Cloud Adoption Framework along with some success stories. But before that, I want to set some expectations in this session. So let's set some ground rules as to what you can expect. We're going to share our experience of executing large-scale migrations, usually which is about greater than 500 servers, which we have been executing with our customers, with one prime objective, which is to help you learn about our proven migration methodologies, patterns, and tools based on our working with the customers globally, and to help you accelerate your migrations while reducing cost and to quickly realize your value. But we always have a big problem statement. The current problem statement is today, why are customers migrating to the cloud? So from our experience working with the organizations, we've realized that they are facing challenges in the current IT, running expensive infrastructure today, and are desperately wanting to liberate their IT and to align with the business closely to become more agile. Some of the reasons, like running a higher cost of operating their on-premise infrastructure, could be running multiple data centers. And they want to exit the data centers due to the cost pressure and to save costs. So what's also we've realized is the IT teams are under constant pressure to implement newer technologies that enables the business while simultaneously keeping the critical data and application secure and trying to keep the network up and running for 24/7. And it's pushing the enterprise IT professionals to develop a new strategy with a detailed plan for helping them to run hybrid into the cloud, like business continuity and disaster recovery as simple use cases to begin with before they actually start to explore and use the cloud for much more use cases than these. Not just that, we're also seeing people want to disrupt and demanding a response. They want to become more agile. We're seeing that most organizations want to be the next big innovators, and they want to gain agility to try to get competitive advantage. And as most of the applications today are powered by cloud, such as social, mobile technologies, which are becoming easier to adapt, so the changes are coming more faster than ever. Though these are some of the motivational patterns, however, they do come with some typical challenges. So one of the most common these are some of the common challenges that we have come across, but the predominant one have been a lot of misconceptions about the cloud, such as perceived security concerns. People always believed that security in the cloud was a myth. But from our experiences working with the customers and engagements and proving with all the controls and the kind of security model that we implement on Amazon Web Services Cloud, people are have realized that security is no longer a myth. It's become more like a reality, and technically security is no longer a challenge for them. And what we've also observed based on during our interactions is that it's more due to lack of physical control and other psychological factors that perceives that security is a big risk. And today we are actually seeing we are having a lot of conversations with the customers. We're seeing a big shift where they're asking, they're moving away from why cloud to why not cloud. The other big challenge, or the common that I've come across based on my engagements, is ineffective asset management. As we realize, there's so many unknown assets today in the current, IT infrastructure, and the organizations are completely clueless and have no idea what it does or where it is. And as the companies grow and the organizations evolve, there's a lot of challenges around the complexity of the application portfolio that they manage, as they have been developed over time based on different business needs, and or it could have been acquired as a part of their mergers and acquisitions, which is kind of leading them to have skewed up on their application portfolio, where some are COTS and some are legacy apps, which are pretty much written back in the days which are not ready to move to the cloud yet. Or it could be even the code. The another big important challenge that we've come across is also the lack of skills gap. We're seeing that the inability of people to move to the cloud, or it's slowing the enterprises to move to the cloud, is lack of knowledge and training to support newer cloud technologies and the operating model to support them once migrated. But at AWS Professional Services, we have helped customers of all sizes across all leading industry verticals and migrate them to the cloud. And we have some great stories to share, which I'll talk about later. And if you were to observe this slide closely, we have a lot of diversity of these customers here, which I'm going to talk about one. Condé Nast is one of our engagements that we worked recently. And as some of you know, Condé Nast is a premium media company renowned for producing highest quality content for the world's most influential audiences. Their brands include like the magazines like Vanity Fair, Wired, Vogue, and GQ, to name a few. In fact, their CEO or EVP CTO, Joe Simmons, recently featured at a reInvent where he talked about their migration journey working along with us. So where we helped them migrate over 500 plus servers, over 1 petabyte of storage and 100 databases, helped migrated them to the cloud, which predominantly consisted of their critical HR, legal, and sales applications, which was spread across heterogeneous technologies like Microsoft, Oracle, and many more, to help them gain 40% of the cost savings, and not just that, and also about in between 30 and 40% of operational performance improvement and increased agility. And take a guess, we all did this in less than 3 months. So you may wonder, what is it for the end result for the customer? The end result for them, in this case, was that they were able to create content quickly, be more agile and flexible, and they had a faster time to market. So now, if you're interested to know more, how can you help your customers in this case? Let's look at how this migration fits in the overall big picture. Let's take a step back here to understand how the migration pattern fits in an enterprise. Over the last few years, Amazon Web Services has worked with hundreds of organizations around the globe to define their cloud strategies, migrate the workload to the cloud, and operate them securely on an ongoing basis. And not just that, we've also helped them to optimize these workloads over a period of time. From all these engagements, we have observed this pattern where organizations that are leveraging the Amazon Web Services as a platform to transform their business. Not surprisingly, most enterprises start off with few projects to understand the business value and to prove, which is the first step, which is a simple use case like backup and archive, where they want to try to see, to test, to use the cloud to see if they can solve the real world business problems. Once they're comfortable with it, then they move up to the next phase, which is the foundation, where they try to set up a hybrid environment between their existing on-premise infrastructure and the cloud to lay the foundation for their future delivery model. While enabling to run a hybrid, they also seed in and set up a cloud center of excellence to enable them to accelerate and have the right people to help them to accelerate further. Once they are moved up and once they have the setup, then they move up to the next phase, which is the migration phase, which is the predominant topic of today's session. Once they have a hybrid architecture and a cloud center of excellence established, enterprises typically then scale their cloud efforts across different business units and begin to consider and execute substantial migrations, and many look for this as an opportunity to retire technical debt. And lastly, people who go all in like Netflix and many more, we've seen many organizations hit a tipping point when they become more proficient in managing the cloud environment than their on-premise environment, and they start to begin to optimize both their IT and business functions in the light of possibilities that have been opened up from leveraging a cloud platform across the business. But as this stages of adoption, or we call it a SOFA, is a journey. You just can't do overnight. So what this journey looks like, cloud adoption is a journey, and firstly it requires a lot of planning and an adoption roadmap which is driven by your business strategy. And this strategy should be closely aligned to your business. And trust me guys, this adoption journey can be disruptive and will drive a significant change in the way you run your business. And how we've seen from the customers use this to be successfully migrating the workloads to the cloud is most of them start small, learn from the migration experience, iterate them frequently, and then eventually accelerate them to meet their business outcomes. But every journey to the cloud is different, as every organization has different business strategies. So the path is different, because if you're a company who is going to migrate basically primarily driven by a cost pressure, your journey to the cloud will be completely different to an organization who's predominantly focused on innovating for the customers. So what is your journey? How does it look like? The migration journey is usually about 5 phases, where the first phase where you start to go of evaluating an opportunity, and then going through a portfolio discovery and planning, and then the major crux of it is your application design and migration validation, and eventually you start to launch and operate and manage in your target environment. I'm going to go through these phases on the next 30 minutes or so. So phase 1, opportunity evaluation. So why do you do this? Opportunity evaluation is all about understanding your existing idea state and building out a class strategy. It also helps you to have a clear understanding of what your business outcomes are. So how does it help? So this is where, I'm sure you're wondering, how do I get this? How do I evaluate this? And this is where Amazon Web Services Cloud Adoption Framework will be a guide to help you to define your journey. So what is the Cloud Adoption Framework? Cloud Adoption Framework is a framework which offers you a structure to help customers to develop an efficient and an effective plan for your cloud journey. So it also provides you a guidance and best practices prescribed within the framework, which can help you to build a comprehensive approach to meet your requirements as a part of your journey throughout your IT lifecycle. It also provides you guidance and supports all the different parts of the organization to adapt the existing practices or to introduce new practices for cloud computing at the highest level. And it pretty much offers you a guidance into a number of different areas of focus, which we call as perspectives, as you see it on the 7 honeycombs on the right. So we also have the AWS CAF white paper, which is available to download from the following link. So if you look at the Cloud Adoption Framework, it is an holistic approach covering 7 different perspectives, starting from your business, platform, maturity, people, process, security, and operating perspectives. And the reason this is broken down is that it helps you to achieve your overall business strategy, not just enabling from your technology per se, as technology is just a piece of a puzzle. One thing to remember, which I would really like to stress as a part of your migrating journey, is to focus on your operating perspective, because that actually defines your operational processes, tools, and guidance for an optimal migration and a service management of your target environment. And this is very, very important, and it's becoming imperative for you to consider the operational changes that you will have to adapt and adjust while supporting your migration. So please guys, do focus on these while you're executing your migrations. So once you have gone through the evaluation phase and you have arrived at your objectives, then what do I do next? So this is where you're going to do your portfolio planning, discovery and planning. Why? The focus here is on determining your scope of the migration and to baseline what you have today. Once the strategy is defined, you move into this phase. As I said before, there are many unknown resources that exist in the current world. So it's really important for you to really understand your current state of your portfolio, because you do not want to start your migration without having a baseline or without having to know what is that you're trying to migrate. So how do you start to do this? So the first step is to define a cloud strategy, which we have in the previous step, in the previous stage of migration, where you have defined your business needs, and then your organization performs a portfolio assessment. And there are lots of tools available to do this, right? You can choose, you can bring in your own discovery tool of your choice, or leverage a tool like AWS Application Discovery Service, which provides you an application migration plan along with their associated dependencies. So what it helps you to do is eventually help you to, come up with a heat map. The outcome of the discovery is to derive a heat map, which provides a very high level overview of the application portfolio based on what your business needs are and considering your business and technical risk appetites. So as you see from the slide, the outcome, you can see some are, you will see some applications at the end of are ready to move to the cloud, some are unfit, and then you also have your two different factors considering your technical risk and business risk, which you probably then look at whether how to move them using the different 6 R's, which I'm going to talk about. The main point here is that you need to have a map to define your quick wins and also the ones which are your hard ones, so that you can clearly choose your initial workloads to migrate to the cloud. So what are my options? Usually, now there are 6 migration options you can choose from. Right? In simplicity, simplifying them, you can pretty much either do a rehost, refactor, replatform, or replace for those workloads which are identified either cloud fit or which also have some technical and business risk to be considered to move to the cloud. Retain and retire are the applications which are pretty much deemed as cloud unfit. So for people who do not know much about what this means, I'm just trying to simplify them. Rehost is nothing but lift and shift. Rehost is nothing but, as I said, it's about lift and shift. Replatform is to lift, tinker, and then shift. You make some application changes while you're replatforming it. Repurchase and replace are to moving to a different platform. Refactor and re-architect is all about redeploying your applications using cloud-native ways. Retire, name says it all, get rid of it. Retain is revisit them at a later stage, but do nothing for now. So from our experience, how does this fit with migrating to the AWS? These 6 R's convention for AWS, we've seen a majority of them falling either in rehosting or replatforming. Why? Because it gives the most agility and resiliency for the customers to choose to migrate, but it comes with a price. Why? Because it costs more in time and resources. Always remember, there is a trade-off based on the migration plan you choose, as this is dependent on your business factors. And as I said, your migration, based on your portfolio assessment, could take any of these paths, not necessarily the same path as you're seeing on the slide. If you have done if you have your assessment which says clearly some applications could be rehosted, you could pretty much do a lift and shift, and then either introduce manual or automation along with some migration tools, and eventually get them, validate them, transition them, and migrate them to production onto the cloud. If there are applications which requires retain or unfit, don't move them, leave them as is. Don't waste time on them. So always pay a lot of emphasis on planning and your discovery planning, because that will actually give you a better view of where to do, what to do, and when to do. So now that you have a clear understanding of these applications in your existing portfolio, what next? Then the first thing you need to do is to define your optimal architecture for infrastructure. You start to look at your target platform, your target end state. Look at architecting your infrastructure by looking at evaluating your current end state of your application to see what are the application and service grouping do I need. Is my infrastructure tightly coupled or loosely coupled? Or do I need to have any performance detail? Are there any do I need to have a specific high-speed network, or can I run it on a low-speed network? Look at the performance. Can an application have some kind of a packet loss and stuff? Or look at where your users are coming from. We have 14 regions globally. You can pick and choose and build capacity based on any of the 14 regions that we have today. So build and plan your network capacity, understanding your location requirements. And once you've done that, also determine the AWS environment in terms of right sizing them. Because when you're trying to migrate them, you want to have a like-to-like infrastructure or move them to a better infrastructure in terms of the specifications. Look at the right sizing of the compute resources. What kind of requirements do I need? Do I need memory intensive instances, compute intensive, general purpose? So try and evaluate and have them. And also look at the connectivity type. How is my on-prem going to be connected to my AWS cloud? Will it be through a private connectivity like a direct connect, or can I go up with a site-to-site VPN over the internet? And as you plan to do your as you plan to do your network planning and capacity planning, you'll have to do a similar exercise here to evaluate your target infrastructure on AWS and look at the features that the cloud platform offers you natively. Can you leverage them, or do you have to then go for a marketplace to introduce a consulting or a technology partner products to use in your infrastructure? While you do that, you also need to spend time looking at your application architecture. You will need to understand your application topology today, what you have, discover, visualize the application topology and dependencies, because you don't want to move a tightly based app where you're moving the web and the app layer to the cloud, leaving behind the databases, because it may not be the best user experience. So try to discover, try to look at the dependencies, try to understand the topologies, try to do your business transactions, try to auto discover, looking at what are any application performance requirements, are there any niche requirements do I need to do, and then also when you're trying to target to re-platform or refactor them into the AWS cloud, also look at the other native features that the cloud offers that could be leveraged on your target end state. Whether can I use auto scaling? Can the application scale today beyond what I have today based on a specific time of the day or a load or a specific flash event that you have? Look at the different databases options engines like the RDS, or could I look at Aurora or DynamoDB, or look at other batch processing like ETL, like EMR and other big data services that we offer you. Can it make your life easier and simpler? So it's very crucial for you to look at your target end state, look at your current state, and then also kind of come up with a way to your transitioning state, because this will help you to decide the optimal placement of your application groups. Once you've done that, then it's all about prioritization, identifying your initial set of workloads followed by your subsequent move groups to be migrated to the cloud. So we have AWS Professional Services have developed an approach to collect, manage, and analyze your application architecture. And this model leverages a weighted scale and prioritization and identifies apps that you can prioritize to move to the cloud, delivering a detailed report identifying the logical application groupings for phased migrations. So gone are the days where you do a big bang approach. So one of the things we always recommend customers, or we've seen customers who have successfully migrated to the clouds, is to always do a phased migration. So once you've identified, once you've done your discovery, once you've prioritized, then it's all about executing it, right? So this is where we talk about the migration factory, which is a combination of two steps where you look at your application design and then you start to do your migration and validation. The migration cycle, this is the AWS migration process. As you see, this combines what we know about technology migrations and some of our experiences helping customers migrate their IT portfolios to the Amazon cloud. This process, while based on experience, is intended to provide some guiding principles to help you approach your migration and not meant to prescribe a hard and fast rule. Every organization has its own unique blend of constraints, budget issues, politics, culture, and market pressure that will guide its decision-making process along the way. Remember one thing, migration process is all about continual consistency, repeatability, streamlined workflow. And most importantly, you need to ensure that you standardize the process where you can continually iterate until you hit your sweet spot. This is not one time, but you'll have to rinse and repeat this multiple times till you hit your sweet spot, which could vary from different requirements of the customer. Just to go a little deep on the migration process, how we look at from an application per se, in order to ensure successful execution, you need to have a proper due diligence. And if you were to square a way of squaring away the high-level design, the governance, and the operational end state, all you then do is focus on some of the pilots or POCs of your identified workloads to see what you can expect during the actual migration is one of the best ways to actually start to look at your application migration design. So what it does, it gives you a well-defined target of your target environment with well-constructed fundamental services which are key to your migration factory, which will eventually help you to accelerate your velocity. So the main point here, guys, is laying down a robust foundation plumbing is a key to a well-oiled application migration factory. So what does this migration factory do? So the migration factory is all about a migration cycle, which we know it's all about. Give me a second, sorry. It's all about automation. In this phase, you're probably solely looking at the migration planning and the migration focus factory activities. If you look at this phase, it's broken down into multiple phases, and the initiate phase is where you've gone through defining your business objectives, you gained an understanding of what the strategy is, and additionally you have done the discovery which was established, whether it's a subset of applications or you're moving an entire data center. As you move on to the next phase, which is the discover phase, you've captured all the high-level data points for in-scope workloads, and you've determined a migration strategy for each application stack. Remember the 6 R's? So you choose one of that to move. And then you start to move into your migration process, which is iterative. And then hence you see the double arrows there, right? And this is where you start to initially move, start small, learn, iterate, adapt, and then you start to bring in your automation to help you to ensure you bring in your consistency, repeatability, and you streamline your workflow, and most importantly, you standardize your process of migration. And if you look at the design activity, it's where the planning is all happening, right? The application grouping, the prioritization, and sprint allocation, and the cadence is all done here to arrive at your end state architecture design. So the point, and you continually iterate this to eventually increase your acceleration. And during the migration, there are a lot of opportunities that you will have to quickly re-architect that lead to a more resilient and service delivery while you implement them on AWS. The key takeaway from this slide, guys, is automate, because you need to clearly have the value of the cloud. You need to make sure that you get a solid pilot executed before you do an actual migration. And not to forget, you need to build a very solid business case. You need to avoid why are we doing this kind of questions. Make sure you understood the TCO. ROI is interesting, but you also need to have many intangible benefits, but you need to make sure it's meaningful. And most importantly, you need to have a strong program management, because cloud migration is a set of complex projects. It's just not one-off. So in order to get this, there are certain considerations to build your migration factory. So the first thing is prioritize recent apps. Why? Because you have a lot of documentation, a lot of skills available within the people, so it's easy to move them and they're low risk. Please decommission old apps where possible. Why? Because they're legacy, they're outdated, they're not ready to scale, you can't migrate them easily, and what I have seen from my experiences working with our customers in real life is there's a lot of missing documentation. Lack of documentation is one of the causes why we've seen customers failing to do a legacy transformation or modernization of their current apps. and iterate through sprints. Use well-defined sprints, short-term, short timelines, smaller projects, identify them and iterate them in order to, quickly standardize, qualify them, quantify them, and measure them to define your success rates. And while doing that, most importantly, you need to, do a lot of knowledge, you have to do a lot of upskilling of your people in order to build a cloud sense of excellence, to accelerate the learning of not only the migration process, but also to support your newer target platform, supporting AWS services and other services. So how do I build my sprint teams? By establishing a cloud team or a cloud center of excellence early on is an onus which will help you determine who plays a role in migration in what areas, right? Because you're clearly defining a role for every member who's going to be a part of the team. You may have developers involved because they could assist with refactoring or re-architecting, so the team composition may vary from app to app. But at a high level, you need to have a core team who can handle 80% of the migration and can pull in the right resources as needed. So if you look at this, slide, so you need to have a core team, and most importantly, as my colleague Manav spoke in the last session, one of the key successful transformation is to have an executive sponsor. Make sure you have a top-down holistic approach of having an executive sponsor and a dedicated cloud migration leader and a core team who manages the project control and technical leadership team, who are a part of Cloud Center of Excellence, who are driving this migration transformation. And then you identify your sprint teams. These are the resources who have niche skills, who come in and help you transform and migrate your applications as a needed basis. So if you look at the structure, this is how it looks like. You have two fundamental core teams here. One is specifically for portfolio discovery, where they come in, they kind of look at accelerating, downstreaming, identifying, creating heat maps, right? So they're trying to eliminate objections and minimize the wasted efforts. Their job is to only go do portfolio discovery. And then you have another core team whose job is predominantly focused on foundation operations, whose job is to build, validate the target end state, look at the transient state, and to define the different environments which can be repetitively scalable and can be easily maintained and monitored by your existing teams. And then you have additional teams, like for, you can bring in lift and shift migration teams for those workloads where you just have to do a lift and shift. Or you can bring in another team who are specifically in refactoring, right? It could be like legacy non-x86 workloads to moving them to AWS Cloud. So you can bring in these kind of team for these kind of workloads whose job is who have specialized skills only to help you to refactor and help you to migrate. So if you look at a migration example, right? Here's an example of a successful cloud journey that one of our enterprise customer in Australia is undertaking. This company today is heavily outsourced, and they rely on different outsourced partners to run and manage their application and infrastructure, where it takes 13 weeks for them to stand up a new server. And this customer has more than 400 applications. And their primary drivers to move to the cloud is to reduce cost and also to enable the app dev teams to be more innovative and agile through a self-service capability. This organization has also pursued a cloud adoption strategy that enables them to build a new cloud capability while providing incremental business value over time as capability is further enhanced and mature. So the approach they took was they started out by assigning an executive sponsor, establishing a cloud center of excellence, and doing a POC for 3 high impacting workloads. This cloud center of excellence team then developed a future cloud operating model, a business case, and a 9-month program roadmap to build out their complete cloud capability, which were delivered over 3 phases. So if you look at the phase 1 in the initial bottom left, this was predominantly focusing on designing and building a minimal viable product, or MVP, so that you could demonstrate the high value of the applications running on AWS. And it also included pretty much standing up a networking hybrid architecture with some identity and access management controls and account strategies and developer tools and basic financial management and reporting controls. Phase 2 then focused on integrating their core service management functions into the platform, such as release management, change management, and building out standard SOEs and lifecycle management capabilities, and to build a service catalog that enabled developers to start self-serving the consumption of standardized and approved cloud patterns. So, and this kind of introduces the inflation and acceleration as the organization is preparing to accelerate to do more, as they have a big leap of faith of the experience of carrying out the previous migrations. And phase 3, as you look at it, is all about focusing, building out additional capabilities that would position the platform capability to be able to support production grade workloads. This example is demonstrating that cloud transformation does not have to be traditionally designed like monolithic programs, where we spend a lot of months planning much before we actually spend executions. So what you could do is you can take an example of the sprint schedule, right? This is an example of a sprint schedule where you can learn from your past experience and introduce operational efficiency and automation to accelerate your cloud migration. So you look at short-term, well-defined timelines. In this case, you see a 2-week program, and they do a 3 to 4, 5 sprints based on the identified workloads on a 2-week retrospective mode. So which kinds of help them to iterate them and increase the productivity over time. And as you look even at a large program that you may be executing today, you'll also see the sprint schedule can also help you not only to perform application migrations in the short term, but also helps you focus on your long-term strategies where you can clearly define a roadmap for the next few years well ahead, which also could include like not moving your complete application portfolio to the cloud, and also look at reducing your on-premise infrastructure like decommissioning your data centers. But you need to have the tools to do so. Let's look at some of the migration tools that we have. There are lots of tools available to perform migrations. We offer few. AWS offers some native services like Snowball, AWS Snowball, which allows you to export your large set of data on a drive, which you can pretty much copy it on a big drive and ship it back to us. Or like services like Database Migration Service, which helps you to migrate your on-premise databases to the cloud. Or more recently, we launched our Server Migration Service, which seamlessly streamlines the migration of your virtual existing compute resources from your existing on-premise into the AWS cloud. And not just that, we also have a marketplace, which is like an app store for AWS, where we have a lot of consulting and technology partners who have listed their products available, which you can pretty much consume either as a SaaS-based or using BYOL mode. In addition to that, we also have a migration portfolio of partners. AWS has a rapid growing partner ecosystem and has tens and thousands of partners who are made up of 2 categories, which are consulting and technology partners. Consulting partners, these includes from the largest system integrators like Deloitte, Capgemini, and Accenture to hundreds of regional smaller ones in ASEAN like Cloud Comrade and BlazeCloud, who have built practices around AWS on helping customers to migrate applications to the cloud. We also work closely with the largest technology partners like Oracle, Red Hat, Microsoft, SAP, and many more who have built their offerings from scratch on top of AWS, which allows customers to seamlessly use them. So there's no hard choice of a limited set of tools. You can use any of the tools that are available to meet your business needs. And I'm sure you may be leveraging some of them today. So now let's look at some of the best practices. So in order to successfully migrate, the first step is to identify your low-hanging fruits, right? So from our experiences, we always advise and assist our customers and partners to look at standalone applications because they're easy to move, they're low risk. Even if something were to go down, you can pretty much fall back with ease. The next is to look at loosely coupled apps. They could be potential good candidates. or even look at newer applications, as I said before, because they have a lot of more recent documentation, up-to-date documentation and organizational knowledge. It's easier for you to move. Some of the examples of low-hanging fruits could be like your dev test apps, self-contained web applications, social media applications, product marketing, learning management, training environments, software downloads, and many more. While you're identifying, please also look out for other, unfit apps, which are like your 32-bit apps, non-x86 applications running on AIS, RISC, or multi-clustered systems like big data and Exadata, which uses a lot of multicasting, engineered, or systems which are vertically challenged. Look out for them, and please do not move them. I repeat, do not move them initially, but do have a look out for them and identify them and put them in the lowest priority bucket. Once you've identified your apps, the second step is to do perform a TCO. Always do a TCO, because this will give you an idea of what's it going to cost in the new world. And this is also going to help you drive your ROI and your critical success factors. So always look at, when you're doing a TCO, total cost of ownership, do a TCO for compute, storage, the regions that you're going to use. Look at your data transfer out, networking charges. Well, how is my on-premise going to be connected to my data centers? Look at the performance utilization. Is my asset currently running, or is it been underutilized, or is it been overutilized? Do I have a capacity issue, or is it due to retire, or do I have my hardware refresh soon coming? Look at all these, statistics while you're considering to do your TCO. And most importantly, the last part, license cost, especially for your business application stack services consisting of Oracle, Microsoft, and SAP. You have to consider them. This is minimum. You need to have this as a minimum to do your TCO, to arrive at your ROI, and to define your success factors. But sometimes it's also nice to have few more, information like backup requirements, high availability requirements. Do I run it in a single AZ or multi-AZ or a multi-region kind of stuff? Look at scalability requirements for each workload. Not necessarily that every workload are a web-facing workload, and then you didn't have to pick and choose whether each workload requires services like auto scaling, Route 53, CloudFront, on stuff. Start to explore them and evaluate them. Look at your disaster recovery, right? Look at your each RTO, RPO. Is this application critical? Is this production-based application? If yes, then what's my SLA today? 5 nines. If I'm supporting a 5.9 today on-prem, how will I architect it for 5 nines in the cloud? Or if it's a non-prod app or a dev test app, then look at the RTO, RPO. Do you really need 5 nines? Start to question them, because the higher you architect them, it's got a direct implication to the cost, right? And then most importantly, also look at your compute requirements for management and monitoring. Are you happy with the native tools that the cloud service provider gives you? Or do you need to introduce more additional tools for your management and monitoring? Or also try to see if you can sweat your investments based on your, based on your existing portfolio of your management and monitoring tools, to see if you can sweat it out fully. And the next step is to do a migration pilot. I would like to reemphasize, investing into pilot is very, very crucial for you, because it's going to help you answer tons of questions and get your feet wet with AWS quickly. All the questions: can I run? Will this support? Will the target environment scale? All these kind of initial noob questions and regarding your technology, processes, and people can all be dealt by doing your pilots. And it also helps you to identify your gaps and touch points. What is that you need? It's just, okay, I'm enabling, I'm migrating, but what else do I need to do? Not only from technology, but also from your processes and your people perspective. And migration also, kinds of gives you a correct estimation of your migration and operational cost. Why? And I love this statement, guys. We say this very frequently at Amazon, and I would like to reiterate, this is 100% true. There is no shortcut, or there is no compression algorithm for experience. So you need to try and experience performing pilots in order to be successful. And this is 100% true. So now let's look at some of our success stories. So this is an example of old world versus new world, where if you look at it, where we have been involved in doing a large-scale migration. Back in the old days, we've seen companies, large enterprises like the one you see on this pharmaceutical company here, where they spent 2 years of planning with 10 people to migrate 800 servers, which was then defined, which took them additional time. That's the scale at which we are used to doing it in the current world. Or look at another retail e-commerce company with a lot of manual processes, manual discovery and migration. It's taken them 6 months of effort to evaluate and to plan to migrate 150 servers with having 10 people. But in the new world, with all this migration process and the best practice and the experience that I've been talking about in the last 40 odd minutes, is helping customers to redefine the migration strategy. And we are now able to help and assist customers to migrate 500 servers in less than 4 months with 5 people by bringing a lot of combination of manual and automation in terms of the discovery phase and also helping them to automate the migration. So this is exactly where customers are driving and customers wanting them to go. And this is exactly where we as a cloud service provider and you as a partner and the customer really can take the advantage of the cloud to help you to get more agile. But you need to have some success factors. If you do not have a success factor, then the entire effort is wasted, right? So some of the success factors that we have experienced working with our customers are: always build your migration playbooks, right? So why? Because you retain the lessons you've learned from your migrations and you foster a good knowledge management. And it's going to make your subsequent migrations easier. Second thing, very, very important, automate, 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 where possible. You need to know how to do the things manually for best practices. But after that, it's all about automation, right? Because that's going to help you to accelerate and automate everything that you can. Most importantly, bring in your SWAT team, A team. It's not the people who are on the bench. Handpick the first application and the candidates, bring in your best team, nail the migration, and then communicate back the wins to the other YT, to the wider IT audience and the business. We've seen this brings in a big change in the confidence of how you can execute your future migrations. And lastly, moving to the cloud is just not enough, right? You need to build a plan around application modernization to take full advantage of the cloud. You don't want to just move an as-is, lift and shift a native, a legacy application to the cloud as-is. You need to kind of refactor them or replatform them at some point of time to take advantages of the cloud, the native features like auto scaling, elasticity, and stuff, which helps you to do your businesses the new way. And as I said, your path is chosen based on your values and based on your business values that you need to choose. Always deliberately scale your migration plan to the path that you choose. You initially write plans, individual migration plans based on individual apps to learn the ropes. But in order to get a maximum benefit, you need to move to scale and plan to scale based on the path you choose and be deliberate about it. So as I come to a close, I'd like to ask yourself, I'd once again like to ask yourself, what if we were to devote more resources to doing things that matter us the most, where we can move faster while being secure, right? This is what is compelling large enterprises whom we speak with to move towards a cloud-first strategy. And it's caused Jim Fowler, the CIO of GE, to call out AWS is a trusted partner and that is going to run their company for the next 140 years. And remember guys, GE is the only company on the S&P 500 that is alive today. Today's life of a company on the S&P 500 is about 13 years. 50 years ago, it was 60 years. And by 2025, I think 75% of the companies on S&P will not exist. And they are in the process of migrating to the cloud first. And just to let you know the scale of GE, GE's today we are currently helping them migrate the 6,000 workloads to the cloud. And with this, I come to the conclusion of my topic.